Why letting go is so difficult. Learn to let go. Part 1. Why is letting go so difficult? You know something is over. You know the relationship has ended. You know the opportunity is gone. You know the past cannot be changed. And yet, a part of you keeps going back. You replay the conversation. You remember what they said. You imagine what you should have said. You wonder what might have happened if you had made a different decision. You tell yourself that you have moved on. But then one memory appears. And suddenly, you're back there again. Maybe it's an old relationship. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's a person who hurt you. Maybe it's a dream that never happened. Or maybe it's simply a version of your life that you desperately wish you could get back. Imagine a man named Daniel. Daniel had been married for 15 years. When the marriage ended, everyone told him the same thing. You need to move on. He tried. He worked more. He exercised. He traveled. He met new people. He kept himself busy. But every night, when everything became quiet, his mind returned to the same question. Why did it have to end? He wasn't only grieving the person. He was grieving the future he had imagined with that person. The family dinners. The holidays. The plans. The version of himself he thought he would become. And slowly, Daniel realized something. He wasn't holding on to the relationship. He was holding on to the story he had created about how his life was supposed to be. This is why letting go can be so painful. Sometimes you're not letting go of what happened. You're letting go of what you wished had happened. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that suffering often grows when we demand that reality becomes something it is not. We want the past to be different. We want people to behave differently. We want losses to be undone. We want life to follow the story inside our heads. But reality doesn't negotiate. Welcome to Timeless Quotes TV. If you enjoy Stoicism, psychology, philosophy, and timeless wisdom for living with greater clarity, consider subscribing and joining us on this journey. Because today, we're going to explore why letting go is so difficult, and how learning to release what you cannot change may become one of the greatest forms of freedom you ever experience. Part 2. The first thing we need to understand is that attachment is not simply about love. Attachment is about the mind saying, I need this to be different before I can be at peace. You become attached to a person. Then you become attached to how that person should behave. You become attached to an outcome. Then you become attached to how that outcome should unfold. You become attached to the past. Then you become attached to the idea that the past should have been different. And this creates a psychological trap. Your mind keeps trying to solve something that cannot be solved. You replay the past because your brain is searching for control. Maybe if you understand what happened. Maybe if you find the right explanation. Maybe if you replay the conversation one more time, you can somehow change the ending. But you can't. The past is closed. The only thing still open is your relationship with it. This is why resentment can last for years. Someone hurt you 5 years ago. The event lasted an hour. But your mind keeps replaying it for 5 years. The person may have moved on. You haven't. And this is the hidden cost of refusing to let go. You continue giving emotional energy to something that no longer exists. There is another reason letting go is difficult. Identity. Sometimes the thing you're holding on to has become part of who you believe you are. I am the person who was betrayed. I am the person who lost everything. I am the person who should have succeeded. I am the person who was abandoned. Letting go can feel like losing part of yourself. But you are not your worst experience. You are not your biggest mistake. You are not the person who left you. And you are not the future that never happened. The Stoics would ask a much harder question. What remains within your control now? Not yesterday. Not 5 years ago. Now. Your interpretation. Your response. Your next action. Your character. Your attention. That is where your freedom begins. Part 3. The first timeless lesson is this. Acceptance is not approval. Accepting what happened does not mean saying it was right. It doesn't mean the person deserved forgiveness. It doesn't mean the loss didn't matter. It simply means you stop arguing with reality. Something happened. It happened. Now you decide what happens next. The second lesson is that letting go is an act of self-respect. People sometimes believe holding on to anger makes them strong. But if someone can hurt you years after they left, they still have power over you. Letting go takes that power back. Not for them. For you. The third lesson is that you can love something without needing to possess it. You can love someone and still let them go. You can appreciate a chapter of your life without demanding that it continue forever. You can be grateful for what something gave you and still accept that it has ended. Everything changes. People change. Relationships change. Bodies change. Careers change. Seasons change. Life changes. Trying to freeze life is another form of suffering. The fourth lesson is that memory is not a command. A memory can appear without requiring you to return to it. You can remember someone without contacting them. You can remember a mistake without punishing yourself again. You can remember the past without living inside it. The fifth lesson is perhaps the most powerful. Letting go creates space. When your hands are full of yesterday, you have no room for tomorrow. You cannot receive something new while desperately protecting what is already gone. You cannot build a new identity while constantly defending the old one. You cannot experience peace while continuously negotiating with the past. Sometimes letting go isn't about losing something. It's about making room for what comes next. Part 4. Now consider why this matters even more in the age of AI. We live in a world where the past can follow you everywhere. Photos, messages, videos, old conversations, social media memories, digital records of people and moments you thought you had left behind. Your phone can remind you of something that happened 10 years ago, one notification, and suddenly you're emotionally back in a different life. Technology has made memory almost permanent, but humans were never designed to carry every memory with them forever. And AI creates another possibility. We can now reconstruct voices, generate images, restore old photographs, recreate conversations, simulate possibilities. We can ask machines to imagine what might have happened differently. That can be useful, but it can also become another way of avoiding reality. You can spend hours asking, what if? What if I had stayed? What if I had chosen differently? What if they came back? What if I could fix it? AI can generate possibilities, but it cannot change the past. And that distinction matters. The future should be built with technology. The past should be learned from. Neither should become a prison. The modern world also encourages permanent emotional attachment. Keep the photos. Keep the messages. Keep checking their profile. Keep watching what they're doing. Keep comparing your current life with your old one. The algorithm remembers everything. You don't have to. Sometimes wisdom means choosing what not to remember every day. Marcus Aurelius lived without smartphones, social media, or digital memories. But his challenge was the same. Control your mind before your mind becomes controlled by what happened to you. Part 5. So how do you actually learn to let go? Start by naming what you're holding. Don't say, I need to move on. Be specific. I'm holding on to resentment. I'm holding on to regret. I'm holding on to someone who no longer wants to be here. I'm holding on to the life I thought I would have. You cannot release what you refuse to identify. Second, separate the event from the story. The event is what happened. The story is what you tell yourself about what happened. Someone rejected you. That's an event. I wasn't good enough. That's a story. You lost a business. That's an event. I'm a failure. That's a story. You made a mistake. That's an event. I ruined everything. That's a story. Change the story, and the emotional weight can begin to change. Third, stop seeking closure from people who may never give it to you. Sometimes you will never receive the apology you deserve. Sometimes you'll never understand why someone did what they did. Sometimes the explanation will never come. Waiting forever for someone else to give you peace means giving them control over when you can finally move forward. Give yourself permission to close the chapter. Fourth, create physical distance when necessary. Delete the messages. Stop checking the profile. Put away the photographs. Remove the objects that keep reopening the wound, not because you hate the past, but because you're protecting your future. And finally, practice saying, it happened. I cannot change it, but I can choose what it means for the rest of my life. That is not weakness. That is emotional freedom. Part 6. If I wanted to practice letting go, I would use a few simple tools. First, keep a release journal. Write down one thing you're still carrying. Then answer 3 questions. What happened? What am I still telling myself about it? What can I control now? Second, create a personal closure ritual. Write a letter you will never send. Say everything you wish you could say. Then put the letter away. You don't need their response. You need your own decision to stop carrying the conversation. Third, use technology intentionally. If social media keeps reopening an old wound, mute it. Unfollow it. Block it if necessary. Your peace is more important than your curiosity. If I were using AI, I might even use it as a reflection tool. Ask, what lesson can I take from this experience? What part of this situation is within my control? What belief about myself should I reconsider? But don't use AI to endlessly replay the past. Use it to understand. Then move forward. And finally, return to Stoic reflection. Ask yourself, what am I trying to control that is already outside my control? What am I refusing to accept? What would become possible if I finally released it? Sometimes the most powerful productivity tool isn't another app. It's letting go of something you no longer need to carry. Part 7. Let's return to Daniel. For months, He believed that healing meant forgetting, but he couldn't forget, so he thought he was failing. Then he realized something. Healing didn't require forgetting. It required remembering without being destroyed by the memory. He could remember the relationship without needing it back. He could appreciate the good moments without denying the painful ones. He could acknowledge what happened without allowing it to define the rest of his life. That is what letting go really means. You don't erase the past. You stop allowing the past to control the present. So ask yourself tonight, what am I still holding on to? A person? A mistake? A betrayal? A missed opportunity? A version of myself? A future that never happened? And then ask the harder question, what is holding on to it costing me? Your peace? Your attention? Your relationships? Your confidence? Your ability to enjoy today? You cannot change what happened, but you can decide how much of your future it gets to occupy. Tell us in the comments. What is one thing you are learning to let go of? You don't have to explain everything. Sometimes simply naming it is the first step toward freedom. If this video gave you a new perspective, subscribe to Timeless Quotes TV. Here, we explore Stoicism, psychology, self-mastery, inner peace, and timeless wisdom for living a meaningful life. And in the next episode, we'll explore another battle that happens inside almost every human mind. Why your ego is your greatest enemy. Because sometimes, the thing you need to let go of isn't another person. It's the version of yourself that needs to be right. Until then, you don't have to forget. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. You don't have to forgive before you're ready. But you can stop carrying what is no longer yours. The past has already taken its time. Don't let it take your future too. Learn to let go and make room for your life to begin again.